What up, my people? Good day today. Y'all alright? I hope so. May this divine communication find you in good spirits where you feel good in your right mind. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no telling, what we done seen in terms of our day-to-day activities, you know what I'm saying, as far as how we cope with things. Being the real people we are in a world and society that also has fake people in it. So, regarding us real people, how do we deal with these things to the point where we just keep winning? You know what I'm saying? And get into our things that's rewarding for us to stay sustained. You know what I'm saying? In an environment full of all kind of elements. You know what I'm saying? That is naturally and artificially created, that's in place to the point where we gotta be fit to get through whatever challenges may confront us. Taking life serious beyond the petty games that people play, or who just refuse to wake up to certain higher levels of consciousness that is meant and designed for them to be free from the tricknology of the devil or the evil ones or the liars or the tricksters, you know what I'm saying, that may try to get in your good grace only to alter the positive frequencies that you as a chosen one star seed or spiritually in tune person, to the point where you value higher levels of consciousness that keep you in a internal state of good standing with emotional healing and well-being, right? But it seems like there are competitive forces that's always out here who appear to be in opposition to the light, because these other particular forces appear to be comfortable with the negativity and darkness that they bring, which really is a waste of time for good people like us to even be around. We even have to deal with, because the things that we engaged in, you know what I'm saying, is about fruition, right? We're about positive fruition, right? To the point where, like the term, like you got people, like the term, this term here, a hard head make a soft behind. To the point where a lot of people is being punished by the wrath of natural nature of the Creator. So, regarding us bypassing all other foolishness, you know what I'm saying, that seems to be at an all-time high regarding these people, you know what I'm saying, out here who is riddled with constant jealousy, constant enviousness, and constant backstabbing to the point where these negative personality traits that these people have, right, create a certain pattern and a ditch for them to end up falling into, you know what I'm saying, as a result of causing themselves trying to trip you up. You know what I'm saying? So, feel good about yourselves. You know what I'm saying? Y'all out here that is standing for good qualities. You know what I'm saying? To where you bettering yourself to gain favor in the societal arena of people activity, to where things is going our way as far as us having it good. You know what I'm saying? In this war of good and evil. You know what I'm saying? To the point where, in light of us winning, like it was a term, you know what I'm saying? In order for somebody to win, somebody else has to lose. In this life, though, that's full of challenges, to the point where we gotta figure out how to be fit to survive and not giving energy to these particular kind of like hateful characters, you know what I'm saying, who neglect themselves by not paying attention to the internal jewels that's within them, that they blind to as a result of them being hung up on negative thoughts, you know what I'm saying, to attack the good of others by speaking ill to them, you know what I'm saying, in ways to where they just have a losing mentality. You know what I'm saying? Why do, like, say for instance, right, why do a lot of our people experience so much hate? You know what I'm saying? To the point where, like, on a global scale, or here in, like, say for instance, our immediate communities where we live at, to the point where we don't interact with our fellow neighbors, where we should love our neighbor as ourselves. We're living in an era of time where it seems like that is almost wishful thinking, but things is not that too far gone, but it's almost to a point where it is too far gone, where we don't trust each other. But that has to change. There is a deep internal psychological self-hate mechanism that have taken root so deep into the emotional fabric of a lot of our people, to the point where, in comparison to other communities, you know what I'm saying, it appeared like black people is their own worst enemies. But we can't let the source of this mentality off the hook as a result of the white supremacy, hegemony, domination, subordination, and subjugation of the European societal group complex construct that socially engineered that reality in the first place, to the point where they economically benefit from the dysfunction of black dysfunction. You know what I'm saying? But mind you, these certain puppeteers of this reality, right, really is the reason for these social conditions. So when it comes to like us changing our social behavior for the better through a particular science of healing, to bring healing to ourselves, to where we think and act differently, to the point where we don't work in service of our own demise, giving into the negative stereotypes of these particular social strategic strategies, you know what I'm saying, to keep us off balance and to be distracted from particular subject matters of real importance. For instance, here it is. We gotta deal with this reality of happening basically to be at war politically with this Trump administration that is full of anti-black measures, to the point where certain groups amongst the Trump administration political circles is acting in ways to where they think that they is going to be able to pull off a lot of the agendas they have to set us back as a people, to like separate us from the arena of power, which is not going to work, because there is things these so-called powers that be isn't even considering or thinking about regarding the things they create and doing, you know what I'm saying, which would end up backfiring on them. Like for instance, no one wins the race in racism, which is an actual fact, but yet certain people is practicing racism here within the borders of the United States, right? Us as a people, we have rights, inalienable rights. How many times we gotta talk about this and say this and reiterate these facts about us having rights to be respected and protected? Because somebody is disrespecting our rights that it appears they don't care about protecting. So where can we go from a circumstance like that, where people's rights not being protected and respected? Who creating such a particular climate like that? You know what I'm saying? Which basically is an inflammatory situation that can cause things to explode when it comes to people ending up fighting in ways that can spill over into a civil war. You know what I'm saying? Triggering responses of people who paying attention to the freedom struggles of the people. You know what I'm saying? The freedom struggles that we have to overcome is important. Now wait a minute. Let me see something. Let me see something. Okay. Let's look up civil rights gains of black people. Right? What kind of civil rights we done gained as a result of overcoming the discriminatory practices of the growth and development of this whole government institution of the United States of America. Now, for instance, let's go into some logistics, which is a computational analysis of information and data from this particular information that's given, right? Well, we're going to make sense of what's really going on and why certain forces trying to strip us from the continuation of the acquisition and accomplishments of power and seats of power when it comes to governance in areas where it mattered most regarding the halls of power here in the United States that we lawfully can participate in as a result of the Voting Rights Act that can enable us to have people in office to represent interests of ours that meet the needs of us as a people to benefit from the resources of this government, of our government, right? That's what they're supposed to be, right? But you got other individuals, you know what I'm saying, who have a right to their opinion, which may be rooted in facts to the point where, for instance, right, you have brothers who represent the truth. Like me, I am a truth seeker. I am into right knowledge, correct information, right? That help us set the record straight, like Partner Bab Yanoon, Dr. Malachi York came to do in terms of making the unclear things clear that we may be free from the confusion of the tricknology of the devil, who love to utilize semantics in ways that will be to their advantage and to others' disadvantage when they see, like, wait a minute, like, say for instance, they look at us like political opponents to the point where they know we think in certain ways to where we paying attention to certain moves they making and certain rules that and regulations that they create to work in service of their objectives that don't include benefit us all as a whole when it comes to the American people. We the people. Wait a minute. Now we know there has been what's considered double standards and a status quo of double standards being perpetrated here in the United States, right, by certain circles of power that are racist in nature, by them being the people who have the power to do what they do, You know what I'm saying? In terms of influencing certain business outcomes or governmental outcomes, or the control of contract laws in place, you know what I'm saying, to enfranchise themselves and disenfranchise others, to where the equality, like playing field, is manipulated and rigged up. Now, for instance, right, why have the Trump administration through the MAGA movement have attacked a lot of civil rights accomplishments by our ancestors? You know what? The human spirit, right, can really be contaminated by unholy demonic forces so deep to the point where these particular demonic forces take over the mind and infest people's minds with wicked thoughts against other human beings. And a lot of these people who is disguised as professional political figures is just that. Temples of evil. Temples of satanic frequencies. Temples of ugliness. Temples of unclean spirits. Temples of lies. Temples of confusion. Temples of bigotry. Temples of trick knowledge. Temples of evil. Temples of legions of demons. This is straight up real. If you a spiritual individual and you sit back and you just analyze the trickery that come from within the unclean spirits of these particular perpetrators of twisted agendas, you know what I'm saying, that's designed to cause chaos and confusion and to not really help their fellow man in a way where they have respect for beautiful ideas when it comes to like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dealing with the positive DEI programs that was in place to help people in ways of making the society run better as a result of this, the people of our society to have opportunities to become enriched financially and improve, you know what I'm saying, with political representation and political power in place to be a reflection of human decency. Now check this out, right? I seen a clip where before Donald Trump got re-elected, during a speech he was making at on his campaign trail, so to speak, right? Regarding Martin Luther King's dream for America, which is, as far as Martin Luther King dream speech, right, is full of solutions of a vision of how the country can be healed and made better as a result of people being transformed by the renewing of their mind and being good people through the content of their character, right? And how Trump was saying that he like was pretty much going to see to it, you know what I'm saying, that Martin Luther King's ideals will be valued by him and upheld to the point where it will work out best for the country, right? To where Trump will be seen as an ally, a great ally to the African American civil rights movement, or black people's civil rights movement, right? To the point where, as a result of the things that this idiot is doing in his current administration with the MAGA movement, right, has stabbed Dr. King's dream in the back, to where he did the direct opposite of him being the ally of our ancestors' accomplishments regarding the civil rights movement, right? To where he had anti-black executive orders which destroyed what Martin Luther King helped win for us through Supreme Court rulings. Check this out, right? Look at the wickedness of these people. Okay, let's go into the science of the civil rights movement regarding this particular article in Wikipedia. Or, I'm not going to say, or is it wicked media? Or witchcraftpedia? You know, you know what I'm saying? You gotta have a sense of humor, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, this article is about the 1954 through 1968 movement in the United States, right? But earlier movements in the United States and others elsewhere regarding, like, go research and look at, like, the civil rights movement. This ambiguations, right? The civil rights movement was and is, because it's still alive and well today, regarding us being mindful of civil rights in the United States of America. Now we know, like for instance, right, like you got like Brother Khalid Abdul Muhammad, you know what I'm saying, when he let the world know, you know what I'm saying, like, I'm a truth terrorist. I'm a history hitman. I'm a lie killer. You know what I'm saying? Regarding painting a picture, you know what I'm saying, that exposes the evils and wickedness of these people who was parading themselves as Christians. But they're not Christians. They are of their father, the devil, and the lust of their fathers they shall do. Look at their track record. Here it is. Look at us living a life to where we law-abiding. We learn from our mistakes. Now that we know better, we do better as a result of having a sound mind, knowing the effects that we can have on people's lives, to the point where we want to have a positive effect on people's lives, where particularly like the souls that we come in contact with on a daily basis, right? We are to have a positive effect on their souls to help bring some kind of positive energies to our environment. It ain't right You know what I'm saying? That we constantly living in these hostile environments that's volatile with violence. You know what I'm saying? Like here in our hometown, you know what I'm saying? I'm a native Detroiter, right? All my life, you know what I'm saying? I've been in a survival of the fittest mentality. You know what I'm saying? To the point where I have to use my brain in a way to be off of strength spiritually with supreme wisdom of knowledge itself, you know what I'm saying, to help put me in a position of advantage. Like I'm dealing with straight up art of war. You know what I'm saying? And these negative stereotypes that society be trying to put on us black men, we go through enough as it is. You know what I'm saying? With these negative stereotypes, you know what I'm saying, to get around that, only to prove the stereotypes wrong as a result of retaliating against that foolishness with positive etiquette. Being well-poised individuals who value cultural knowledge that is not a part of cults. You know what I'm saying? That's not a part of cults. You know what I'm saying? We represent culture. And little do we know, you know what I'm saying, certain forces, you know, don't want to give credit where credit is due. But they gonna have to give me my credit, period, because when I do transmissions like this, videos like this, it's for me to set the record straight so y'all won't have a misunderstanding about me. You know what I'm saying? Because I have a brain that is intelligently designed by the Most High. I recognize that. But these forces be having y'all distracted to where y'all don't recognize that about yourself. Thus the confusion runs rampant. You know what I'm saying? This is not a game, but games are being played. So in terms of the game of chess, or the art of human chess, you know what I'm saying? Like the Pimp Brother came out with, or the real military strategist, Sun Tzu, who came out with the art of war. You know what I'm saying? It's all kind of books out here where we can ascertain certain philosophy and psychology. Put two and two together and come up with a particular idea about how to be victorious about whatever you're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? In a society that's full of all kind of game consciousness, where individuals running game all day for profit, or you know what I'm saying, or running scams and schemes. You know what I'm saying? Seeking to have a victim of their schemes. Don't be a victim. The only way you can protect yourself from being a victim is to arm yourself with knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Now let's get back to this certain line of reasoning that I want to go to, where it's going to connect with other relevant information that I'm going to be talking about. You know what I'm saying? The civil rights movement was, like, when we read stuff, we got to read between the lines and think about the reality of the current civil rights organizations that's active today, that's battling against this Trump administration, where our people have to be mobilized to have a real understanding and value for our voting power to transform how this government is being ran right now. Because it don't make no sense, you know what I'm saying, how We got Supreme Court judges, 6 of them, even one black judge, the guy, what this is his name, Clarence Thomas, a black man who was in a mentality to where it appears that he's suffering from some kind of mental breakdown to where the Willie Lynch chip is inserted in his psyche to where he making decisions that's totally counterproductive to his own people. Where he is siding with the white racist Christian white nationalist far right political movement of the racist Republicans of the GOP, what they call the grand old party of the political far right here in the United States, connected with the white supremacists. That stuff is not right. So how do we right these character defects pretty much? You know what I'm saying? But they don't think they character is defective with what they believe in regarding their Christian white nationalism, so-called Christians. You know what I'm saying? That is hateful, greedy, financial tricksters, you know what I'm saying, who want to consolidate power for themselves with all kind of economic exploitations in place that would enrich they money proliferation opportunities, financial, regarding the economic warfare that they are parading. Okay, now regarding the civil rights movement was a social movement in the United States. See, we still active with it, right? A social movement in the United States from 1954 to 1968, which aimed to abolish legalized racial segregation, discrimination, and disenfranchisement in the country, which most commonly affected African Americans. The movement had origins in the Reconstruction era in the late 19th century and modern roots in the 1940s. After years of nonviolent protests and civil disobedience campaigns, the civil rights movement achieved many of its legislative goals in the 1960s, during which it secured new protections in federal law for the civil rights of all Americans. All Americans. But yet, these particular Christian white nationalist forces is not thinking about all Americans. They thinking about themselves at the exclusion of others. And not only us, other non-white peoples of America. I'm talking about these racist people that Donald Trump is leading or the face of, you know what I'm saying, trying to front like he not, but he is. The evidence he created with that wicked signature of his, like when he be signing his signature on executive orders or whatever, when you look at the energy of that signature, think about it. the energy of that signature is energy of racism. You know what I'm saying? And negativity. You know what I'm saying? When you really think about it. Because the frame of mind you gotta be in to really not be a real humanitarian president. You know what I'm saying? This 2025, them character defects in this guy. You know what I'm saying? But due to his own arrogance, he blinded and seduced by that power. You know what I'm saying? And the influence he have on his cabinet, which is all white pretty much, to the point where they just stuck in their ways being racist people. And this who our country, and our country is in the hands of these type of people, and the intelligent people amongst white people that's going for that, you know what I'm saying, is gullible as hell. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them is rejecting the leadership of Donald Trump and what he's doing through his administration with these asinine executive orders that's causing him to be like certain portions was like a pariah. You know what I'm saying? Of political so-called leaders. You know what I'm saying? Where people following the ill-advised leadership. You know what I'm saying? This like psychopath. Now you got real psychopaths and lunatics out here. Like they, you know, you got people who like say the definition of insanity is to do like the same thing over and over and get a different result. You know what I'm saying? Like this strange decision when Donald Trump bombed that particular area over there in Iran. You know what I'm saying? Reckless decisions. You know what I'm saying? To the point where, look, we are spiritual people who have respect for life. Not to be putting people's life in danger or creating a climate where terrorism can possibly strike somewhere as a result of the bad judgment of these so-called leaders. You know what I'm saying? Here it is, right? You have Muslims who live positive lifestyles, following the divine tenets of their religion that don't include any kind of aggression violently toward others. Right? Bad apples is in all monotheistic religious groups. You know what I'm saying? Look at all the crazy people who's supposed to be so-called Christians who done committed all kind of crimes of the century and crimes, you know what I'm saying, that have gained negative publicity to the point where, you know what I'm saying, they committed certain crimes to the point where they had to get locked away for the rest of their life because they were psychopathic lunatics. Right? But guess what? They say they believe in God and they was Christians who made bad decisions. As far as like not playing no God games, we don't do that here. We responsible for our own actions. That's why it's like, look, man, don't come, like out here in this social reality out here, people cannot come around me with no foolishness at all, because I'm the type of person who is about tapping into my potential in life and not get pulled by certain forces in the society that don't use their brain to be in tune with the righteous ideologies of that kind of social orientation that I just explicated. You know what I'm saying? Through knowledge of self. I got vision. But that don't mean the next person got vision because they haven't been reading information and applying certain information to work on themselves to the point where they have done the internal spiritual work needed to be done to be in tune with the sustainer of life. Now, regarding what's going on with these mind games that they playing with the civil rights and this MAGA movement, right? Now, following the American Civil War, 1861, 18 through 1865, the 3 Reconstruction Amendments to the United States Constitution abolished slavery, got rid of it, and granted citizenship to all African Americans. Here we are today, right? So, as far as here we are today, African Americans, right? Shouldn't we have friendships in all walks of life? Or we not supposed to be, or certain sectors or circles of us, we ain't thinking like that as human beings, where we mature in our consciousness enough to have friendships with all walks of life, and that's how we conduct ourselves as cultured individuals. Now this continue to read, right? The U.S. Constitution abolished slavery and granted citizenship to all African Americans. Like I say, here we are, right? The majority of whom had recently been enslaved in the southern states. During Reconstruction, African American men in the South voted and held political office, right? Like for instance, when the master teacher put together the Holy Tabernacle Family Guide regarding us participating in the political process, right? To get in political office and represent it through the lenses of righteousness. But these particular people, right, in these political offices pertaining to all Americans, how is they acting? They acting in opposition to the bigger picture that include all American people, right? But they excluding others to where that particular GOP group is thinking about themselves, rooted in pure greed, selfish human beings that is temples of the devil, satanic temples, Luciferian temples. That's a part of a Luciferian conspiracy. Remember Noble Drew Ali was like, if you can think, you can save yourself. The master teacher told us we got to get back to being mentalists, using our brain capacity in more ways than one, being cerebral in nature to the point where we can think our way through, you know what I'm saying, equations of situations, you know what I'm saying, that may transpire or deal with subject matters, being solution orientated, you know what I'm saying, to the point where, like what I'm doing right now, I'm doing this for us to reason together to where we can agree on truth. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking to y'all, you know what I'm saying, being motivated by lying. You know what I'm saying? Or to give y'all misinformation to trick y'all, because as far as like representing a character that represent being a sellout. No. I don't have a sellout bone in my body. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I don't have to do that. I am just accepting my own and being myself. I'm being myself, man. I can't be nobody else. I'm not a credulous individual. I learned from certain experiences, you know what I'm saying, that caused me to end up being a good teacher. Remember when they say, yeah, experience is the best teacher? So I'm trying to teach right as far as me sharing knowledge with individuals for them to learn something the right way, man. I'm not trying to swindle you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to scam you like these scammers out here that's really scamming people. You know what I'm saying? Create negative emotions in people for people to feel down. You know what I'm saying? Because of some kind of social injustice that they done did to the next man out here. You know what I'm saying? Look, remember, the master teacher say ignorance is an enemy to the mind of man and woman. You know what I'm saying? With all our giving, you gotta get an understanding, understanding, overstanding, and understanding. You know what I'm saying? Every day, these forces is at work to do certain things to consolidate power for themselves. Every day, we gotta be at work to consolidate power. You know what I'm saying? For the greater good of humanity through the knowledge of ourselves, which is full of remedies to get there. You know what I'm saying? This goes on to read, right? The U.S. Constitution abolished slavery, right? And granted citizenship to all Africans. Like I said, here we are, right? The majority of whom had recently been enslaved in the southern states during Reconstruction. African American men in the South voted and held political office, but after 1877, they were increasingly deprived of civil rights under racist Jim Crow laws. Now see how they created the Jim Crow laws to block our progress, to block us gaining momentum in political offices. See, the political offices, right, is important halls of power where we can get things done at for us dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. But they don't want to the inclusion to take place because they are divisive. Then when you look at the speeches Trump be giving, calling people incompetent, man, look, them just word games, man. Because look at the incompetent things that he doing, you know, that has negative effects on the civil rights gains that our ancestors helped accomplish, to where they opened up doors for us to even acquire even more greater power, which is why the psychological strategies being put in place to distract us from focusing as a body politic of people now, politically, to continue to increase our civil rights movements and gains. So what do they do? Right? So what do they do, right? Individuals who fail for the trick, right? They end up getting distracted by the drugs. And not valuing, paying attention to the political processes of what's going on in the arenas of power. You know what I'm saying? So, when Dr. Amos came out with the book, The Blueprint for Black Power, a moral, political, and economic imperative, an economic must for us to do, right? So we can have a future, you know what I'm saying, that is balanced out when it comes to us being engaged in things that sustain our livelihood. This goes on to read, right? Now, as far as like how they were increasingly like trying to deprive us of civil rights under the racist Jim Crow laws, which, for example, banned interracial marriage, introduced illiteracy tests for voters, right? Segregated schools. Now, notice how they come up with terms that attack the mind to make it seem like you incompetent or you can't think or cognitively function intelligent enough to coagulate words into intelligent, understandable processes, to where as if we are mentally feeble-minded or impaired, but yet having the potential to learn as a result of being given proper education. It's all about psyching you out. Look at this stuff, right? Now, regarding the segregated schools and were subject to violence from white supremacists during the nadir of American race relations. African Americans who moved to the North in order to improve their prospects of the Great Migration also face barriers in unemployment and housing. Legal racial discrimination was upheld by the Supreme Court, right? Listen to this. Legal racial discrimination was upheld by the Supreme Court. Legal racial discrimination. Legal racial discrimination was upheld by the highest court in the land. In its 1896 decision of Plessy v. Ferguson. So you would think the Supreme Court judges had moral compasses, right? To where they wouldn't support legal discrimination against people. But they did. So how can we get authentic people in office who have moral compasses, right? Who value real de jure government, non-color of law processes that don't contribute to these de facto operations that these particular so-called oath takers of the Constitution to avail their oaths of office to protect the rights of the people, right? Where they didn't do that, they violated their own oaths. So how did they get away with that without being subjected to some kind of being held accountable with some kind of accountability and get punished? You know what I'm saying? For they basically treason. You know what I'm saying? That's basically treason. So, regarding this 1896 decision in Plessy v. Ferguson, which established the doctrine of separate but equal. When you look out here in today's society, people separated but equal. The movement for civil rights, led by figures such as W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, achieved few gains until after World War II. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman issued an executive order abolishing Harry S. Truman issued an executive order abolishing discrimination in the armed forces. Now you have, this is like considered, okay, something good, where Harry S. Truman signed executive orders to get rid of discrimination in the armed forces, where our people have been accepted in the armed forces of the United States of America, dealing with all branches of the military. The militaries, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, Special Operations, Black Ops, what have you, right? But let Trump, you know what I'm saying, let Trump tell it, right? Like stuff like this, Trump went back in history and got rid of them opportunities to make stuff not inclusive, like again, which is racism being, what you call it, reinforced. Now watch this, right? We're gonna get into some important stuff here. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Hold on. We're almost there where I wanted to get to. Now, in 1948, no, that's in 48, hold on. In 1954, the Supreme Court struck down state laws establishing racial segregation in public schools and Brown versus Board of Education. A mass movement for civil rights, right? Led by Martin Luther King Jr., right? And guess what? This foolish guy Donald Trump did, he struck it down. But I'm gonna get to a particular point, you know what I'm saying, why they strategically targeting these particular civil rights gains that gives us power when it comes to political offices, right? That they trying to navigate us out of, where they can consolidate power for themselves in the political offices and seats of power for their future. But regarding our future though, why is these forces trying to set our people back when we thinking, oh man, these, white people have changed, they cool, and the seats of power is getting better, where diversity, equity, and inclusion is being improved through these programs to help better race relations, right? In addition to Donald Trump and his MAGA supporters and white conservatives or whatever, right? Donald Trump want to play mind games about attacking critical race theory as well, which is justifiable research that's talking about this, which is basically a tactic for them to hide the facts of this real history, which is Black history and American history in one. Look at this, right? In 1954, the Supreme Court struck down state laws establishing racial segregation in public schools in Brown Bird's Board of Education, a mass movement for civil rights led by Martin Luther King Jr. and others, began a campaign, nonviolent protest, right? And civil disobedience, including the Montgomery bus boycott with James Farman, and I remember them. In 1955 and 1956, sit-ins, right? Now, there's a awareness going on to where our people, African Americans, blacks, Nubians, Moors, Nuwapians, you know what I'm saying, indigenous black people, right? Waking up to certain political strategies that we need to do regarding the money issue, where we see the importance of boycotting a lot of these companies where they don't get our dollars, where we redirect our dollars into companies that appreciate us financially and don't exploit us financially, which is a good move. Now watch this, right? Watch this, right? Now regarding these sit-ins in Greensboro and Nashville in 1960, the Birmingham campaign in 1963, and a march from Selma to Montgomery in 1965, press coverage of events such as the lynching of Emmett Till in 1955, and the use of the fire hoses and dogs against protesters in Birmingham increased public support for the civil rights movement. In 1963, you know what? Reparations. In 1963, about 250,000 people participated in the March on Washington after the President J.F. Kennedy asked Congress to pass civil rights legislation. He was for the civil rights of the people, right? Kennedy's successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, overcame the opposition of Southern politicians to pass 3 major laws, right? Despite the opposition, right? He overcame the opposition of Southern politicians to pass 3 major laws. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which stopped prohibited discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin in public accommodations, employment, and federally assisted programs. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, right, which outlawed discriminatory voting laws and authorized federal oversight of election law in areas with a history of voter suppression, which is a trick that the Trump administration is trying to create right now with the attack of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. You know what I'm saying? Trying to create a climate of our people not understanding the importance of voting, and to have an understanding of the importance of our voting power. We got too many black people out here acting impotent and incompetent themselves, but not getting involved with the political processes that can help transform our lives for the better when it comes to us accomplishing, having power and representation for us, for real, in seats of political office and power. That we will be connected to. Don't be dummies by thinking that our vote don't matter. That's why they attacking the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Don't be dummies. But in they mind, they like, we gonna trick these black dummies. They don't understand, you know what I'm saying, obviously, the importance of they vote. Our vote do matter. Why you think they're attacking it so hard? You know what I'm saying? Like for instance, right? Like this major point they said here, right? They want to create what's called voter suppression to hold the votes back. So they think they can continue to have their way by they political figures that they lobby for, whatever, you know what I'm saying, to have their way in the seats of power, getting access to manipulating all branches of government that Trump illegally is doing. You know what I'm saying? Developing into what they call an autocracy. You know what I'm saying? Where the Trump administration, through Trump trying to operate like he a dictator. You know what I'm saying? With what they call impunity or something like that. It's something like that, right? But he don't have that kind of power. And for him trying to take certain rights and power away from us, what makes him think we gonna give them some power to do what they trying to do, that's rooted in all kind of immorality. that's not for the sake of the American people. Don't you supposed to have the country's best interest at heart? So who's the dumb? You know what I'm saying? That is playing all kind of shenanigans, thinking about themselves, chasing the bag of ill-gotten gain. That, is not good for the country. We need better representation. So we got what they say, what we got 3 and some months, 3 more years and a few months of this administration to go until he get up out of there forever. You know what I'm saying? But it's things they trying to consolidate and set in place though to stick past 3-4 years of him being in office. You know what I'm saying? So we got to come up with a certain strategy to undo all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's trying to suppress our future of being prosperous in political offices. Okay, for instance, right? Regarding other civil rights accomplishments that we so beautifully accomplished, right? Even the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which got rid of housing discrimination, right? Which is beautiful things, right? The Supreme Court made further pro-civil rights rulings in cases including Broader versus Gale, 1956, and Loving versus Virginia in 1967, banning segregation in public transport and striking down laws against interracial marriages. So say for instance, right, all the races here in the United States of America mentally been conditioned to think certain ways. But us as adults, right, we supposed to have, we supposed to have free will, individual impulse to act how we want to, from our own free will, be with who we want to be, regarding people coming together, men and women, straight people, as consenting adults, to be with who we would want to be with, as far as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the acquisition of property. You know what I'm saying? But yet, people tend to continuously end up thinking like a group complex to where they stay within their own race. But if you know what I'm saying, you might have interracial relationships here and there, or people who feel like they found true love, or they love who they want to love, you know what I'm saying, where that's their business, right? But people on the outside looking in a interracial relationship where them two people have found love, you know what I'm saying, you still got people running their mouth about their business, you know what I'm saying, for whatever reason, you know what I'm saying. But yet, people who stay within their own race, who marry their own women, you know what I'm saying, and the women marry their own men within their own race. You know what I'm saying? The men that marry their own women and the women that marry their own men in their own race, still they get negative feedback from people who don't have love, still talking about them in ways to where they don't want to see them have a good thing. It's always something. You know what I'm saying? So overcoming struggles in this life to have your own household in order. It's your responsibility in terms of us being in tune with minding our own business and taking care of ourselves to where we really is in a position to a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, y'all gotta understand, a person pretty much have to respect my knowledge, which is power. Even though you have forces that's like, you know, a lot of these individuals out here, they sheeple. They don't think. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to people like us, they sadly mistaken. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, power to the people. You know what I'm saying? That's real talk. This resume to read though. The new civil rights laws ended most legal discriminations. Look at that. Discriminations that was legal once upon a time. They got fucking rid of that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? That was negatively affecting us. Fuck that motherfucking shit. You know what I'm saying? The discriminatory practices. You know what I'm saying? That ill affects us. You know what I'm saying? Those racist, sick laws. You know what I'm saying? Create negative spirit in our environments and creating miserable living conditions like that, man. That ain't no way to live, man. Nobody want, hell yeah, you're gonna have rebellions against inhumane treatment and living conditions. Y'all gotta be fucking insane out here thinking somebody is gonna go for that kind of treatment and living conditions. How will y'all you fuckers, excuse me, how will you people like to be put in those miserable living conditions? Oh, you wouldn't like that, would you? So why the fuck is y'all doing that, you know what I'm saying, to our people? Answer the question. You can't, because you know good and well, you know what I'm saying, if y'all was in our shoes, how would y'all react? You know what I'm saying? All kind of pressure that y'all would be on, y'all will really fall to pieces. You know what I'm saying? But y'all not like us. We built different. But even though we have gone through all these things as a people, we are overcomers with a bright future, with spiritual forces at work that work in service of our divinity. You know what I'm saying? We recognize this, but at the same time, we dealing with people who act like they arch enemies of ours. You know what I'm saying? Well, they gotta be treated as such. You know what I'm saying? With the Most High. Glory be to the Most High. That's why I love the Creator, the Sustainer of our ancestors. Not no fake false gods either. Feel me? That certain forces pushed on us. You know what I'm saying? To make us bow down to false images and garbage like that. To put in our mind inferiority complexes. You know what I'm saying? To the point where we have been estranged from ourselves. So, I welcome knowledge of self that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought us. Padma Babya brought us. And other great master teachers brought us to get a glimpse of being realigned with our true spiritual sciences. Now think about the beauty of the greatness of the civilizations that our ancestors developed, that we are part of on this planet, that brought light, what's called the light of civilization to this whole earth. You know what I'm saying? We know and realize, we realize and know how great we is. We ain't falling for no okie doke. You know what I'm saying? Of these the inferiorities that y'all trying to manipulate us with. But the manipulation stops. You know what I'm saying? Once we become awakened. Right? And once we become awakened, the judgment starts. Judgment day is here. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And then what they do, they turn right around, y'all, and demonize the word woke. These motherfuckers want y'all to stay asleep forever. They want to keep you in a mental lockdown where your mind is not set free for nothing. Your mind is to be a plaything to these people, where you full of sport and play and don't take nothing really serious because they socially engineer a certain identity, false identity, that breeded what they call niggers, right? Of a factory that was produced, that purposely produced individuals who are non-thinking individuals. You know what I'm saying? Who don't think too highly of themselves. That's why you got a lot of black people with inferiority complexes, where they be looking down on each other all the time with fucked up attitudes. You know what I'm saying? For us who don't have that problem, we heal in our mind and spirit, heart, body, and soul. That poison ain't in us. And you got other fellow brothers and sisters amongst us who see that bullshit ain't in us, to where some individuals, we still trying to cause us problems and be jealous of us and envy of us because of our positive personality traits. You know what I'm saying? Let's resume and read here though. The new civil rights laws ended most legal discrimination against African Americans. All our people have to know this and become re-educated to these realities and live according to these particular historical facts. The new civil rights laws ended most legal discrimination against African Americans. Though, right, informal racism remained. Now notice that though, despite these accomplishments of ours, like right now to this day, just like the Trump administration and his compatriots, right? Racist to this day. You know what I'm saying? These people is racist to this day. In the mid-1960s, the Black Power movement emerged, which criticized leaders of civil rights movements for their moderate and incremental tendencies. A wave of civil unrest in black communities between 1964 and 1969, which peaked in 1967, and after the assassination of King, in 1968 weakened support for the movement from white moderates, despite affirmative action. The other programs which expanded opportunities for black and other minorities, for black and other non-white people. They use the term minority, but ain't nothing minor about us. We are major. In addition to being major, we are the majority. You see, these the word games they play though. But this goes on to read, despite affirmative action, other programs which expanded opportunities for black and other minorities in the United States. By the early 21st century, racial gaps in income, housing, education, and criminal justice continue to persist. Right? So minimizing these problems, right? When we don't have these problems with criminal justice, we don't have these problems with education, we don't have these problems with housing, we don't have these problems with income. Now these is life's necessities, right? That we all should have covered to support our well-being. But you have twisted, demented forces out here that don't care about your well-being. When you have certain forces like people come up with the thoughts, they don't care about us. You know what I'm saying? But we care about us. So through us acting like we care about us, we transform these falsified consciousness, you know what I'm saying, that people be having. You know what I'm saying? Real though. Real. So with that said, right, that point is very important, you know what I'm saying, about understanding the games that these particular people play, you know what I'm saying, with trying to suppress us and hold us back, hold us down, attack them there, attack them over there, you know what I'm saying, like we don't supposed to be making progress. These some insane, look man, that's insane. These people is insane, man. Doing the same thing with the racism that remains. What kind of different results is we gonna get from racism? No different results, but the same negativity. That's insanity. You know what I'm saying? Where is the human improvement? Where is the human improvement that y'all supposed to glorify? We really glorifying it. You know what I'm saying? With right knowledge for the permutation of the human species, representing a higher consciousness for the planet, regarding the vibrations on the planet to be raised. You know what I'm saying? That takes me somewhere else. Hold on for a minute. I'm back. Let's resume with this real talk and this real history pertaining to the relevance, you know what I'm saying, of our citizenship status here in the United States regarding our realities of how we are securing power for ourselves regarding our acquiring political power in the United States of America. You Now check this out, right? They say if you don't know history, you're doing to repeat it, right? But it's crazy how a lot of us knowing history, but seeing forces at work who know about history as well, but trying to literally turn back, right? The hands of time. When we don't want to live in the past like that ever again. You know what I'm saying? We have transcended those circumstances. We in a new era of time here in 2025 regarding being progressive. You know what I'm saying? With tapping into our potential. But yet, you got certain forces, you know what I'm saying, who want to set us back while we are moving forward, which goes to show you the deep-seated jealousy, you know what I'm saying, and ill feelings and hatred of our progress. You know what I'm saying? It just eats these people up inside to where they feel like they just gonna fall apart. You know what I'm saying? Like if they see us succeed when we don't feel like that about them. This is a crazy, crazy situation. You know what I'm saying? As far as like how people think in this world, it is insane. But just continue to read. This is real concrete history that we can base our understanding on regarding like, okay, how did we become citizens with rights in the United States in the first place? Let's go here, right? American Civil War and Reconstruction era, right? Regarding further information, 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, right? Before the American Civil War, 8 serving presidents had owned slaves. Now, here it is. The history of the United States of America, presidents owned slaves. What about the presidents on the dollar bill, the printed paper dollar bill money? Did any of them own slaves? When you do your research, what will you come up with? This goes on to read, right? Almost 4 million black people remained enslaved in the South. So if over 4 million black people was renamed, what was their names before they was enslaved? They don't talk about that. But when you have the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who justifiably, as the messenger of Allah, who was selected here in Detroit City and Paradise Valley with the divine mission for the resurrection of the 15 million or more that was mentally dead to the Lamb of God, regarding the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for us to get an understanding of who Elijah Muhammad is to us. Under the circumstances of us as black people being in these conditions of being afflicted by all these discriminatory practices of racism, for us to come up out of that unjust circumstance for us to get cleaned up out of that for us to get cleaned up out of those dismal crypts of racist white supremacy conditions. Right? Now, regarding being renamed, where we mentally suffer from amnesia today, not remembering who we are as a result of being enslaved. Like what this said, almost 4 million black people renamed or remain enslaved in the South, right? Generally, only white men with property could vote. And the Naturalization Act of 1790 limited U.S. citizenship to white people. Though we was here, our people was enslaved as property who was not considered citizens. So how did we end up being citizens? And mind you, we have a history, an indigenous history, you know what I'm saying, that need to be brought to light as well. Okay, now, following the Civil War, 3 constitutional amendments were passed, including the 13th Amendment, 1865, that ended slavery. The 14th Amendment, 1869, that gave black people citizenship. The 14th Amendment, right? But you have some people who is vocal about that particular amendment about us in terms of, like, we have been put into a matrix that's outside of our indigenous status as indigenous people of these shores, right? Now, regarding how we became citizens, though, according to this, out of the slavery circumstance, right, where we wasn't citizens, to being made citizens through, right, as they say, the 13th Amendment in 1865 that ended slavery, the 14th Amendment in 1869, which was after the 13th Amendment of 1865 that ended slavery, where 4 years later, the 14th Amendment that gave black citizenship, that gave us citizenship, right? Adding their total for congressional appointment. And the 15th Amendment that gave black males the right to vote. Only males could vote in the United States at the time. So black women wasn't included in that particular 15th Amendment, where it gave us as black men the right to vote, where the black women didn't have the right to vote at that time. From 1865 to 1877, the United States underwent a turbulent Reconstruction era during which the federal government tried to establish free labor and the civil rights of freed men the South after the end of slavery. Many whites resisted the social changes, leading to the formation of insurgent movements such as the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK, whose members attacked black and white Republicans in order to maintain white supremacy. In 1871, President Ulysses Grant S. Grant, the United States Army, and United States Attorney General Amos T. Ackerman initiated a campaign to repress the KKK under the Enforcement Acts. So is these considered good white people who did that with some kind of morality? Some states were reluctant to enforce the federal measures of the act. In addition, by the early 1870s, other white supremacist and insurgent paramilitary groups arose that violently opposed African American legal equality and suffrage, intimidating and suppressing black voters, and assassinating Republican office holders. Now, who was these Republican office holders who was assassinated? We have to find out who these people were. However, if the states failed to implement the acts, the laws allow the federal government to get involved. Many Republican governors were afraid of sending black militia troops to fight the Klan for fear of war. Now, who was these black militia groups back then? Who were black militia groups? You know what I'm saying? For our protection. You know what I'm saying? This goes on to read. Hold on.